Hey, this is Adam Huxama from Projection Hub, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through one of our templates for a fine or casual dining um, restaurant. And what I wanted to do, and I was just kind of curious, playing around with this template that we have, to see if we could see the impact of reducing capacity in a restaurant to see how that flows through to the bottom line. With COVID, a lot of restaurants, especially now coming into the fall and winter, when you may not be able to have seats outside, the reduction of capacity is going to be a real issue. I knew that kind of in my head. I knew it had to be an issue. It was going to be an issue, but wanted to actually put some numbers down to show myself and to show you how reducing capacity actually impacts the bottom line. So I'm going to go through and just kind of show you the assumptions that I have in here initially, and then I'm going to come back and just change one little number that right here, the seats available or the seats in the restaurant. I'm going to reduce that capacity, and we're going to see how that impacts our numbers. So let me just walk you through how this template works. So put in your number of seats. We've got food cost as a percentage of revenue at 45%, which is a industry standard, within the range of industry standard. Could be even a little high. So I think this is conservative. Your food cost may be less than 45%. One server could handle 6 tables per hour with the average table size of 3. An average server hourly pay of $6 per hour, because servers are also going to make tips. Average number of chefs per hour is 3, with a average chef pay of $25 an hour. And of course, all of these are assumptions. If you had this template, and I'll link to the template in the notes, in the description of this video. But if you had this template, you could put in your actual number. So if you pay $20 an hour, you could put that in. Same thing with average number of hosts or hostesses per hour, and their pay. Average number of other employees. So this could be dishwashers or folks that are bussing tables, and then staff for closing and opening, and then how many days you are open per week. And we have the ability to put in breakfast, lunch, and dinner here. I'm assuming here, I went through and put capacity filled is 0%. So I'm assuming this is kind of for a restaurant model that doesn't serve breakfast, that they only serve lunch and dinner. And then, so what you do here, you put in how many minutes the average visit length is for lunch, how many hours you're open for lunch, and then the capacity filled. So what this is saying is that out of the 100 seats, 40 of them are filled. And you're never going to be able to get this to 100%, no matter what, because you're going to have tables. You might have, if you have a booth, for example, that could fit 4 people, but you have a party of 2 come in, and the only place to seat them is at a table or booth for 4. You're automatically down at 50% there. So this is, even if you had every table had a party at it, you're still going to be way less than 100% capacity, because you're never going to have the perfect size table for each party. So when we reduce the number of seats, I'm actually going to keep these capacity numbers the same, because I think you're going to still have these challenges. And this is if everything is full for the entire 3 hours. In reality, the other reason this is at 40% is because probably, let's say from your noon to 1 o'clock hour, you might be at 40%, but or it might be at 100%, or closer to 100%. But maybe from 11 to noon and from 1 to 2, so kind of the other ends of the lunch hour, you're probably going to be much less capacity there, right? So that's why you've got this percent capacity filled here at 40%. Okay, then going through this, I'll try to speed up a little bit here. So average spend per person is $15 per person, so per plate, essentially $15. And then we have the ability to grow that over time. We have dinner or evening hours. We're saying the average length here is much longer for dinner. You can see the different capacity numbers here. $18 for dinner per person. We've got other hours here that's kind of the in-between hours, so like in between the lunch and dinner hours that maybe you're open, you just don't have, you're very very empty during those hours, but you're open just in case, right? Okay, so all of that produces a revenue for us based on these assumptions of $114,000 per month. And go through, we've got our expenses, our kind of operating expenses here. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. I'm gonna delete that sheet. Sorry about that. Meant to zoom in a little bit. Okay, so we have our operating expenses here. You'd be able to put in your own, additional operating expenses or change any of these numbers. But we've put in some basic assumptions that we think are reasonable for a 100-seat restaurant. Of course, rent is going to just vary so much depending on where you are. This could be extremely high number for you if you're in a low rent area. It could be extremely low low number if you are in some of the highest rent areas in the country. So again, you're going to need to make your own assumptions here. We just put in some numbers that can represent a particular restaurant. We've got a manager and an assistant manager, and then we also have an owner draw here of $5,000 per month. So we're assuming let's say the owner's working in the restaurant too, and kind of they're taking an owner draw kind of as their salary. So those are the revenue and expenses. Now, if we come to our at a glance numbers here, zoom over. If you can see this. So at these numbers, we're performing quite nicely with a net income at 12%, which is good for a well-performing restaurant. A lot of times you're going to be in the single digits. You're probably not going to be very unlikely that you'd be higher than 20% net income as a percentage of your revenue. So I think 12% is reasonable. So now here's the test. The question is, what if we leave everything the same except our local or state or even potentially federal government could reduce our capacity for the purpose of COVID. Now let's just change it to 50%. So if we cut that in half, we go back here. All of a sudden going from a 12% net income to a 10% loss, a net loss, makes a huge difference. And let's just, even for the sake of argument, I've heard of a lot of restaurants that are limited to 25% capacity. So let's just reduce this to 25% and see how ugly this gets. Now, look at that, a 62% loss. So why does it make any sense to even try to stay open when you're at a 25% capacity? So, the point here is these restaurants, and really any business, in all likelihood, that is used to operating at a relatively thin margin when they have full capacity. And when you reduce that capacity by significant margins, 50 or 75%, go back to that again, you can see a huge decrease in profitability and sustainability of the business. And so really, what are the options for these businesses? What I think makes the most sense is that businesses that can figure out a sound strategy for carry out and delivery, which, delivery, your delivery options, DoorDash or Uber Eats or Postmates or others are going to eat into some margin there for sure, but could still help make up the difference here that you're missing if you widen your market and increase sales by offering carry out and delivery. So that really seems to be the best option at this time. And boy, going into the winter months, I'd say if you haven't figured out delivery yet, you got to do it now, because you can see with potential capacity mandates coming down during the fall and winter, potential COVID outbreaks, if you haven't figured out a delivery and takeout business model, you just can't survive very long with reduced capacity. So there you have it. I will leave it at that. I'll put my contact information in the notes to this video. So if you want to reach out, if you want access to this template, there'll be a link to that. And you can, put in your own specific details and just kind of get a feel for what might be coming your way as a restaurant owner, or if you're starting a new restaurant, kind of understanding what you're getting yourself into and the potential for capacity restraints. So that's all we have. Thank you.